Welcome to New Perspectives on RVN Television. I'm your host, Barry Lefkowitz. Most residents in our region and state are not aware that New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware have such a rich history involving Native Americans and the impact they've had on culture and religion. New Jersey State recognized the Nanticoke, Lenni Lenape, Powhatan Lenape Nation, and Ramapo Lenape Indian Nation, and Intertribal American Indians of New Jersey. In 1995, the New Jersey Commission on Native American Affairs was created, but later the commission's name was changed to New Jersey Commission on American Indian Affairs, whose mission was to promote understanding and knowledge about the history and culture of the American Indian communities in the state, in order to improve the quality of life for all people in the state of New Jersey as one of its major goals. To help us understand how Native Americans combine religion and culture in a symbiotic relationship and roadblocks that have cropped up because of a lack of both sensitivity and misunderstanding of this relationship is my guest today. And I'm going to properly pronounce it correctly. Thais Quinton from the Native American Advancement Corps, and our good friend Heather Coomer, partner of the Watershed Legal Group. Ladies, thank you both for coming. First of all, Ty, would you share with the audience your background?
Yes. Okay. I'm a citizen of the Nanticoke Lenni Lenape Nation, which is in southern New Jersey. Our tribe traditionally inhabited this area. We still inhabit this area since prior to European incursion. Some of the older names were the Nanticoke and Cohansik, and
right.
We're from the Cohansik River. So therefore, I've been immersed in our culture since birth. And my father was the chief and one of the founders of the new modern day structure that founded the new modern day structure, the Nanticoke Lenni Lenape Nation, which was formed in 1978. Prior to that, I was able to do beadwork and dance and so forth. My father was a union carpenter out of Washington, D.C., and a lot of our families were also the Piscataway Canoes, so I spent time as a really young child with Piscataway Canoes as well.
Which is another Native American group?
Yes,
okay.
Which is also Algonquin people,
Okay.
are the same people going back and forth for hundreds of years. Most of my family is from the Nanticoke of Delaware. Before we established our Nanticoke Lenni Lenape Nation, my parents were enrolled citizens of the Nanticoke tribe in Millsboro, Delaware, before we started our branch. And then for hundreds of years, they would move back from community to community in order to have gainful employment to make a living. So that's why there are several families that you'll find in the Rancocas area, which are part of the Powhatan Lenape.
Right.
And then
which
our
is in
area.
Burlington County.
Mm-hmm. And then our area, and then there's two other communities in southern Delaware, which is the Cheswold area, and then Millsboro. So for hundreds of years, we go back and forth as the same people.
That's quite a history that your family has. Heather, you're an attorney, and you in fact represent the Native American Advancement Corp, which Ty, is the CEO of. Can you share with us your background?
Sure. I've been practicing for almost 15 years now. Originally went to law school for environmental law. Right afterwards, I worked for the city of Jersey City, the redevelopment agency, for about 6 years before going to the private sector. And then I was part of the Great Resignation, where I decided I'm going to start my own law firm, and recruited some friends. And now we have, it's been almost 2 years now, a little over 2 years, for the Watershed Legal group. So it's great. We, you know, my law partner, Allison Reynolds, she was my law school friend, and we were told, and this is in the, we were like Pace Law School is like #1 in the country for environmental law. We were told that either you can make money or you can help people, but you can't do both. So the inspiration for it was like, screw that, we're gonna do both. And that's how it came about, and that's what we work towards with the Watershed Legal Institute. Sorry, Watershed Legal Group.
You better get it correct.
I know, right?
Yes.
Soon we'll have an institute one day.
Yeah.
So it's an honor to represent groups like TIES. You know, this is the reason why we got into the legal field.
Well, that's super, and I know you're going to, as we go on, explain some of the barriers and problems that have risen recently. That's why you're representing TIE in our group. But you know, TIE in pre-prep, you know talked about the fact that you would like to have people understand and offer what you call an awakening experience to others with this, what we refer to as a symbiotic relationship between culture and spiritualism as a indigenous community. Could you help us understand, because I know we were just talking before we went on air about one with you know, the earth. Could you help us understand that as well as the spiritual aspect to, you know, to all of this?
Sure. So for generations, we're taught to live one with nature, not above nature or below nature, but that we are nature. That everything that makes up our body is the same as on the outside, and you know, the trees, the roots, the plants. So what we would like to do is we would like to share our knowledge and our wisdom with the outside world now that we have an opportunity with this, the Cohanzic Nature Reserve. And when we say symbiotic relationship, we mean to offer an experience so that we awaken the senses to realize that nature lives and thrives on its own without interference with mankind, as far as being in charge of or managers of, but to live one with. So in order to offer that experience, we want to give guided tours our way. I know some of the examples would be walking barefoot on the moss and lichens.
Which we refer to as being grounded.
Is grounded, yes.
Yes.
We call it, right. We call earthing, grounding. And it's being directly connected to the energies of Mother Earth. And moss and lichens has no root system. And since it has no root system, in order for it to grow, it pulls a lot of energy directly from the earth so that it thrives. And when you experience the moss and lichens in a barefoot sense or laying on it, it quickly charges the body with the electrons it needs to reset, especially from the world we're in, where we're surrounded by electricity and all types of other interferences that help keep us asleep instead of awakened to our senses and our intuition. Another experience that we do is we'll hold the soil in our left hand and close our eyes. And when you hold the soil in the left hand and close your eyes, it also creates a part of the awakening, because the soil is where we're from. And we all know that we only use 20% of our consciousness. So where's the other 80%? There's always a percentage to 100.
Okay.
So it also helps to awaken to use that subconscious knowledge that's in all of us through our DNA code. So, and then also, of course, you have to experience the water, and this property has what's called a freshwater lens pond.
Now, the property is located in what municipality?
It's in Salem County in Quinton Township.
Okay.
And the freshwater lens pond is also charged because it also rises with the tide, and then it goes with the tide, but it also has fish, and it's very beautiful, so that also awakens a part of it. And then, of course, it's surrounded by beautiful pine trees, several varieties of pine trees, as well as cedar trees, which opens the senses when you do the breathing experiences.
Now, you said that you hold the soil or the dirt in your left hand. Why the left hand?
It does something to the right side of the brain, and it is
Okay.
scientific. Probably the reason why you hear in the Bible, let your right hand not know what your left hand giveth. It probably has something to do with the same code of opening the senses, away from the dual eye into the single eye, into the awakening. So
Also, as a question out of ignorance, our heart is on the left side.
yes.
Does that have something to do with it?
It may have something to do with it. Maybe I'm going to have to test it out to see what the difference is now between the left and the right. But we receive everything in our left hand.
Okay.
And but it is a part of the awakening experience. You can't just hold the soil, but you can hold the soil and tell stories also, because sometimes those, holding the soil will bring back stories from the past. So,
In other words, looking at, in terms of previous lifetimes and whatnot.
I'm not sure if it's previous lifetimes. We are our ancestors. We say we are our ancestors.
Okay.
Because, we come from the ancestors. So if, that DNA that runs through our ancestors also makes us up.
Right.
So I'm not sure if we want to look at it that way or if we want to look at it in more of a physical way.
Okay.
And when you live within the dirt of your ancestors, which this property is, and we hold that soil, the other aspect is that is the dust of my ancestors, physically.
Now, could you help, because part of the issue in Quinton is about religion. Could you help us understand what is the tie between your cultural behavior and religion?
So we don't say religion.
Okay.
Religion is watching football every Sunday.
Okay.
That's a religion. It's a religious aspect.
All right.
Okay, that's religion. Doing the same things over and over and over. We're spiritual.
Okay.
Okay, we are spiritual. And to just lump us into saying everybody has to do it this way, we don't do that. Because every spiritual experience can be different. Everybody's spiritual experience is an individual basis. So, we can have 10 people walking down the path, and 10 people have a different spiritual experience or a journey.
Right.
But if I impose religion, I'll say, okay, let's walk down the path. Everybody turn left, touch that same tree, feel that or try to feel that from that same tree. It may not work. That's religion.
Okay.
Religion is guiding someone to lead them in the way of one person or one belief, where spiritualism is allowing that spiritual ability to grow on your own terms and your own pace.
Okay. But we do recognize the fact that there are institutions that provide spirituality
Yes.
as part of a service.
Yes,
And that there are also religious groups.
correct.
Okay.
I don't think they're any different.
No, I would take it as
It's,
same.
it's all the same.
Same.
Legally, it's all the
The
same.
same.
Legally,
But
it's
I
all the
want to
same.
make sure that the audience understands.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Now, land was purchased by your group, the Native American Advancement Corp., which you said is in Salem County in a municipality called Quinton, which many people may not be familiar with. Heather, can you share with the audience the purpose of the purchase and how Quinton officials have treated Ty and her Native American group?
Oh gosh, where do I even begin? So the proposition, and when we're discussing, and just to piggyback on what Ty was saying about when you're asking about culture and spirituality and religion, we're talking about a house of worship. So what was proposed, for them is the sanctuary. The sanctuary is part
A spiritual sanctuary.
Yes, a spiritual sanctuary, and its portion. This was actually in a former church, so it went from a church and then it was transferred to another church, and then it was transferred to you guys. Well, technically, it was transferred to New Jersey Conservancy, where it was purchased by Green Acres, and then was transferred to them for the purpose of the sanctuary with the Nature Conservancy. Now,
Which means that the state of New Jersey was recognizing it as such.
yes, you have to fill out different items, including
Okay.
like zoning and things like that, because if it was previously a house of worship, and it was going to be continuing, the proposal that we had was continuing underneath the spectrum of house of worship, as how is it defined by the land use terms and how the property is being used. It's just not the house of worship, what people believe or what people recognize as the Judeo-Christian or Islamic, their idea, or Hindu, what they envision as a house of worship. Of course it looks different, and this is an ongoing, this is not a singular issue, or this is not the first time it happened in New Jersey, right? But what happened was that, so we put this in, we're expecting to get a CO. That's primarily the different,
CO being?
the certificate of occupancy, because they weren't changing anything on the property, on the building. This is an existing building that was church, right? So it was a house of worship, and it was just going to continue being a house of worship. I think the only thing you guys were changing was the sign. That was it. And nothing else was changing. And so normally that is considered a continuance. So
Right.
just like if you to purchase a property for your house, right? It was a house previously, you're going to be using it as a house. You're not going in front of a board to get an approval for it to be a house, because it's already a house and it's going to continue being a house. So by the way, my background is land use, so I've been doing land use for like 15 years now for land use approvals, and this is the only time I've ever seen this happen, and it alarmed me. So what happened is we put in a zoning letter describing like the use and everything like that, requesting confirmation, that this is a continued use, and it got rejected. We put into this whole type of, actually I'm carrying like the zoning letter right now, and one of the things we had to bring up as well is this, what is called religious land use. It's RLUPA, which is considered, I'm going to get the acronym right, but it's the Religious Land Use Institutionalized Persons Act. So I don't know why they combined both of those items, but we call it RLUPA, right? RLUPA. And that signifies that you can't discriminate between religion and a religion for how you treat them regarding land use. So like a town can't treat a church different than a synagogue. They can't treat or a church different,
or a mosque
different than they would treat the sanctuary, which they were doing. However, Quinton Township said, no, you have to go for entire site plan approval, entire conditional use, in order to get this approval. Now, a conditional use and a site plan would cost a lot of money to get done.
Right.
Not only that, but it's not necessary. There's no reason for it. I'm looking, I looked at their zoning. Even if they were just saying, well, no, this is not conforming because underneath their records it's considered like a conditional use. However, that conditional use already happened, right? So in land use law, once you meet all those conditions, it's considered permitted at that point. It kind of transfers and then it stays like that. For a site approval or conditional use to come in, you'd have to do a change of use at that point. We're not changing the use. It's still a house of worship. However, they didn't trust us for doing a house of worship. And we put down we've had very detailed zoning officer letters. So they said, basically they completely rejected it, saying, we have to go in front of the board for a house of worship use, which is insane because it's already a house of worship. And even then, we give all the information, all the tax information, which was interesting as well, because Quinton Township started taxing this land. Now, it was taxing them when it was a church, which is insane to me. And they can see
because isn't a church normally considered a nonprofit?
Yes,
yes, it is. And so right now, they're still continuing to tax them. And they were taxing them when it was just a regular Christian church. So the Quinton Township, the fact that they were able, this church got permitted to build a property, right? And then transfer it to another church, right? And then as soon as it was transferred into Ty's group that just wants to do a sanctuary, which would be considered a house of worship, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you have to do X, Y, and Z, and then some, which again, it's not only not necessary, but it's like, why? It's a lot of money, and not only that, but it's it's scrutinizing that what we found out was they don't trust that it's going to be a house of worship. So that's the feedback we've gotten at this point, and that's coming from like the attorney, the conflict counsel, and saying, which kind of shocked me.
But let me ask a question here. Isn't the proof supposed to take place after the place opens and is operational for them to then look and see that you are in fact fulfilling what you've said you would?
And I said that to the attorneys. I said that to the our attorney that we're working with right now. And I was like, that's what zoning violations are for. If you don't think that they're acting as a house of worship, then go put a zoning violation ticket on them. You're not supposed to do preventive. The fact that they're like not trusting, like let's think about that. And what they keep on going back on, which peeves me off to no end, which is when they're like, it would have been just so much easier. I don't understand. It would just be easy. Why don't you guys just like go in front and like file this site plan approval and get the conditional? We'll make it easy for you guys. You guys would have had in the CO by now, right? And my response is usually like, yeah, it would be really easy for Rosa Parks to just stay in the back of the bus. And that's what we're dealing with right now. I'm going to be straight up with you. Is like, that is what we're dealing with. You're discriminating with this. Why is this considered different? And why is your response being like, well, it's just easier for you to just follow our rules, And the fact that they're even questioning that we don't trust them. And the other thing they said was like, well, they haven't even given the plans yet, which is another crazy one because we sent the plans basically 3 or 4 times at this point.
Right.
And early on.
And we've been requesting a meeting just with the mayor this entire time. We never wanted to get to this point. We never wanted to get to an appeal. We never wanted to get to even to have this ongoing. But they are forcing our hands, and we had to preserve the rights here.
Let me stop you there because we have to do that thing known as a commercial break.
Okay.
But we'll pick up from this point and also discover why have you been discriminated against when the normal procedures for all this. So please stick with us, and we're also going to learn more about the Indian culture and one with land, and we're also going to learn about grandmother tree and deep tilling, which everybody now accepts as important part of conservation. So don't go away, we'll be right back.
Un ataque cerebral puede ser fácil de detectar. Su ser querido no logra hablar o quizás no puede moverse, pero existe otro síntoma de ataque cerebral que muchos de nosotros no vemos. Se llama negligencia espacial y puede ocurrir durante o después de un ataque cerebral, causando movimientos visuales distorsionados. Afortunadamente, existe una solución que utiliza tecnología óptica basada en prismas durante la rehabilitación. Si usted o su ser querido experimenta un ataque cerebral, pregúntele a su doctor sobre la negligencia espacial. Encuentre más información en kesslerfoundation.org.
Weeds. I have you surrounded. You just gonna stand there? Or are you gonna take your lawn back?
We're gonna take it back.
We're gonna take it back.
With Scott's Turf Builder triple action, it gets 3 jobs done at once. Kills weeds, prevents crabgrass, and keeps your lawn growing strong. Glorious!
No.
Get a bag of Scott's Triple Action today. It's guaranteed.
Feed your lawn.
And Doug.
Hey man, nice base. Clearly you're a safe driver. You could save hundreds for safe driving with Liberty Mutual. They customize your car insurance, so you only pay for what you need.
Welcome back to New Perspectives on RBN Television. We're very fortunate to have 2 very strong women who are sharing with us both about spiritualism and being one with Mother Earth, but also the fact that there is clearly, seems to be a case of being discriminated, possibly because of being from the Native American, which, begs the question, what you're being put through, the question is, in your mind, why?
Oh gosh, I have a good answer for that. But
All right.
my answer is, because I get this question a lot, because especially when people are like, when we were going through this, we must have had so many different conference calls for different officials and different people that are looking at it, they're like, I don't understand why the municipality is acting like this. Why is Quinton, it's not like we asked one, but we asked like a ton of them. And my reaction is like, when you can't figure out why someone is acting the way they are, look at a historical context. And that always prescribes me as like, you see the historical context looks at a history of discrimination, racism. It didn't just, a systemic issue that we have in New Jersey. And, I guess being Jewish, your ears perk up when you recognize, discrimination from another discrimination. Like we have
Right.
kind of like, we recognize discrimination because we experience discrimination.
Sure.
So that always perked my ears up. And it's the historical context. And, Ty can give you the historical context, what her family went through. And
Yeah, could you?
what have you guys gone through?
Because
The erase of the culture.
In terms of people's misunderstanding and perception about Native Americans and Indian tribes, comes from television movies and television series and so forth. Have you found that because of being a Native American, that you were talking about your family having gone through this, can you sort of tie that together with the problem with Quinton?
The Doctrine of Discovery.
Yeah. Well, I come from the generation where we went from invisibility to now visible.
Okay.
So my grandparents and my father's generation had to literally live invisible underground. I remember when they had first started having the meetings back in 1976 in the Greenwich Fire Hall, some of the elderly people said, no, we can't let anybody know who we are because they'll take our land. And, one of my grandmother's generation, she was born in 1908.
Okay.
So that generation was still alive. And they said, you can't let anybody, we can only talk about it in the home. And I remember my grandmother saying, we were only allowed to talk about being Indigenous or Native or Cohanzic in the home. We weren't allowed to speak about it. They weren't allowed to speak about it. So when you have a deep set of fear that goes back generational within my generation, because these are the people that I was raised with, then it becomes a part of their story and a part of their narrative. And it's a form of erasure. It's a form of streamlining everybody to being as one. The last train that left with the ones that did not want to live with any other culture was in 1924 out of Salem County to go to the reservations. And, we still have some of our surnames in some of these reservations. So, that's our lifetime. That's our lifetime. My grandmother was born in 1908, and she died right after I had my child and my second child in 1990. So when you live with the elderly people that had to live with such fear, my father was considered a rebel. He was considered a rebel. We went to the longest walk in Washington D.C. in 1976, and it was amazing. We didn't have our own freedom of religion until 1978. 1978, not long ago. We couldn't hold certain feathers, or, if we had a pouch, then we were scrutinized. So, a pouch with herbs, or any other religious items that they didn't understand.
Right.
We were chastised for it.
Yeah.
In our lifetime, 1978.
Yeah.
So, that's still, in one of my first books, I wrote about living in two worlds, the blossoms of bright flower.
Okay.
So, I penned 16 books, and, as a legacy for my children and my grandchildren. And, and I talk about, and I look, and I read some of the poetry that I wrote back in the 70s versus as I got older. And, and I didn't realize that I went through that transition of invisibility to visibility. One of the things that they taught us, go to college, get your degree, and then live the American nightmare or the American dream. You go to work, you commute an hour each day, you spend 2 hours in the vehicle, you get a house loan and car loans, and your perfect grass, and your kids go to sports and so forth. And then you retire and you die. Nothing else. No other in between. No imagination, no creativity. And I remember writing about that in some of my poetry, saying, how can I be creative? How can I go from that cement world to this natural world and be torn in both places?
Yeah.
So, now that we are in the visibility stage, and my father was very instrumental, both of my parents, peace be my mother, they were very instrumental in building this firm foundation and going through all those levels of bigotry. My father was told, when he was in school, they said they were talking about Native Americans, and he stood up, raised his hand, I'm Native American, and the teacher says, sit down, you're not Native American, there's no more Native Americans left.
Yeah. Which is honestly.
And this was a professor?
This was when my father was in school.
Okay.
When he was in school.
Yeah.
And, I remember when they first made Native American Day, and I wore my regalia to school, and I was written up for wearing a costume to school. This is my day. So, we still have this mentality in some areas where they haven't been exposed to who we are. So this mentality is so deep-rooted, and we're still living with that generation of people that are still in politics, that are still our leaders, that are still in charge of things, that have no idea.
And it's the eraser of history, too, because, to be honest with you, I get really upset when I hear facts of New Jersey history that I wasn't taught in school. I'm from Monmouth County. I think I built like a lean-to and did different things in the Girl Scouts with the Monmouth County Park system. But did I know that there was a Native American reservation in New Jersey? No. Did I know that they took all the people from that reservation and then pushed them to the Midwest? Absolutely not. There's only a couple of people. And the interesting part of it is like now they're trying to come back. So like that, people are trying to go back to their roots now.
Sure.
But it's not taught in schools. I always like to use the phrase like hidden in plain sight. It's hidden in plain sight. We see this is, and it starts with like how we're taught in schools. And there's a power in learning history, if you know history, then you're not going to be allowed to repeat it. And I feel like, the only way to defeat or correct, we're never going to really correct systemic racism, especially against Native Americans. There's too much to correct, but at least there's a deeper understanding by knowing the history. so we don't repeat it again.
We're going to have you come back, because I want you to be able to share about the work you're doing with inner city youth, because it's more than just this church. You have land that you're using to help teach about the land, and also I know that you helped educate us the other day about grandmother tree and deep tilling. So I want to have you come back as soon as possible, and maybe also by then we'll have a little more activity by the Quinton people, because I know you're moving towards the possibility of suing them.
Well, that would be the state. We're just going to, with the state's encouragement.
Yes, with the state's encouragement.
Encouragement in action.
Which, we established that the state recognizes you and what you're doing. To my audience, as always, I thank you for allowing me in your homes each and every week. Please stay safe and stay well. And to the two of you, I thank you so much for sharing with us and helping us have a better understanding about what it is in terms of how Native Americans, from a cultural standpoint, and the fact of the discrimination. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.